Hello, and welcome to another episode of the United She Stands podcast. We are talking all about Ohio today. It is our monthly Ohio episode. Specifically today, we're going to be talking about ballot initiatives that you may or may not see on your November ballot, depending on how signature collection goes. So we also know 2026 is obviously a big election year. We will be doing entire episodes, I'm sure, on this in the future. Lots of races statewide. So we have statewide races, state house races, and like we just said, ballot initiatives. Specifically today, we're going to talk about ballot initiatives because there's actually 4 that we know of that are collecting signatures. And that's actually kind of a lot, honestly. All right, Sarah, you want to talk about Ohio ballot initiatives?
I do, because there's actually some really good stuff that we're excited about. So, as a reminder, quick step back here. In Ohio, we have the right as citizens to put a ballot initiative on the ballot ourselves without our state legislature. And truly, thank God, because that is how we got abortion rights enshrined into the Ohio Constitution. That is how we legalized recreational marijuana use. And that is how we almost ended gerrymandering in our state. Don't worry, I'm sure there'll be another ballot initiative concerning that in the upcoming years. But anyways, this is actually a really unique process. I mean, not necessarily unique to Ohio, but unique-ish to the nation, because not all states are able to do this. So yeah, it's really great that Ohio as a state, we can put these ballot initiatives on our ballots as citizens. So we'll start off with just kind of talking through the ballot initiative and referendum process. And this is all defined in the Ohio Revised Code, also referred to as the ORC, specifically Chapter 3519. And we're not expecting anyone to know this document exists at all, but that's why we're bringing it to you here today. So within this document, it says the powers of initiative and referendums are reserved for the people of Ohio under Article 2, Section 1 of the Ohio Constitution, enabling citizens to place an issue directly before voters on a statewide ballot. Citizens who wish to put a statewide issue on the ballot may do so through one of the following 3 methods. 1. Initiated constitutional amendment. And this is meaning to amend or add an article or part of an article to the Ohio Constitution. The second method is to initiate a statute, and this would be adding a statute to the Ohio Revised Code. The last method here is a referendum, and this would be appealing an existing law or section of a law. Note that any law passed by voters is not subject to referendum.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, Sarah, if you've voted in the last several years, you've seen these on your ballot. This is how we enshrined abortion in 23 and marijuana, like you said. So abortion was an actual constitutional amendment and marijuana was a statute. And then if you were paying attention or you heard about SB1 this last summer, so summer of 25, we did try to get a referendum on the ballot that summer. In the spring or early, like late winter or something, the Statehouse passed SB1, which was Senate Bill 1, that basically limited what Ohio institutions could teach. It eliminated DEI, all this stuff. There was a huge effort to get enough signatures to do a referendum. And that would have, if we got the signatures, which we unfortunately did not, would have put the issue on the ballot for voters to decide if it should be repealed or not. So you have seen these in Ohio. Like Sarah said, it's a process that not every state gets to have. Some states do have it, but we are lucky here in Ohio to have this process.
So this is all great that we have the ability to add amendments, statutes, referendums, etc., but it is not an easy task at all. And we're going to quickly walk through the actual process so we're all on the same page here. The first step is to obtain 1,000 signatures from electors in the state. These are sent to the Attorney General of Ohio alongside a summary of the proposed amendment and the full text of the amendment. Once it's determined that the summary is a fair and truthful representation of the proposed amendment and the signatures are certified, a second round of signatures is to be gathered. And let me tell you, it's a whole lot more than 1,000.
It is. So the second round of signatures must be obtained from 44 out of the 88 counties in the state, so half the counties. And it has to be a total of, at least in this year, 442,958 signatures. And that number is based on the number of folks who voted in the last gubernatorial election, so the last election for governor, which was 2022. So like I said, that's the number this year. It always kind of varies slightly based on elections. When we talk about these initiatives all here in a minute, like I said, there's going to be 4 of them. This is the place where all of those are at. So all of those are in this current step where they are trying to get 442,958 signatures. And all of these signatures will be collected basically from now and through the summer, through June. They are all due back July 1st.
And so, assuming an initiative gets all of its signatures by the due date, these signatures are then certified by the state. Upon certification, the issue is put on the ballot for a statewide vote, which for these initiatives we're going to talk about today would be in the November election. In that election, they would need to receive over 50% of the vote for the initiative to become law. And that brings us back to this year. As we've mentioned, there are 4 different ballot initiatives that we are aware of right now that are in the signature collecting phase. Some really exciting ones, may I add.
They are. So let's talk about the first 2, which are exciting. We're going to talk about them together. So we're in this conversation, we're going to call them number 1 and number 2. I just want to be really clear that that might not be the issue number on your ballot. Okay.
Actually, I can guarantee you in November, I'm going to go up to, hopefully these make it on the ballot. I'm going to go up to the voting machine, have in my head, it's 1 and 2 because Ashley told me back in January.
I'm just very concerned because I am numbering these issues, but it's only because it's numbered in our outline. Okay, guys, these numbers are made up at this point. So issue number 1 and number 2, we're going to talk about today. The USS issues, issue number 1 and issue number 2, not your ballot issue 1 and 2, are from the Ohio Equal Rights Organization. They are leading up this effort for both of these first 2 we're going to talk about. So Ohio Equal Rights is a nonpartisan grassroots organization led by citizens from Ohio. Their mission is to advance the well-being of Ohioans and strengthen the quality of life in the state of Ohio by promoting equity and civil rights via a citizen-led ballot initiative. And it says A because we're going to talk about it, but they tried to submit 1 initiative and it got broken into 2. So one of these is for marriage equality and the other is for basically better protections against discrimination of all sorts. Sarah, do you want to tell us why we have 2 amendments?
Sure. It's super not frustrating at all, but here we go. Ohio Equal Rights originally had 1 proposed amendment, but the Ohio Ballot Board decided over the summer their proposal actually contained 2 amendments. The organization could have challenged the ruling in the Ohio Supreme Court, but decided to move forward with 2 amendments instead, likely because the Ohio Supreme Court is stacked with Republicans.
Okay, so let's talk about the Protection from Discrimination Amendment first. And I think they're just kind of calling this the Equality Amendment. So this amendment would add language to the state's constitution protecting citizens from discrimination based on race, color, creed or religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, regardless of sex assigned at birth, pregnancy status, genetic information, disease status, age, disability, recovery status, familial status, ancestry, national origin, or military and veteran status. And so obviously that's a wide range of protections and that's intentional. But why do we need this? Well, Ohio currently actually lacks non-discrimination policies in its constitution. So we do have them via legislation, but the question is do you trust our Statehouse to not take those rights away at some point with some new crazy bill? Right. Let's look at what comes out of the Statehouse. It ain't good, guys. So the answer is we do not. And this amendment basically would add these protections to the Ohio Constitution and make it much more difficult for bad politicians at the Statehouse to mess with these types of protections.
Now on to the Marriage Equality Amendment. For those that do not know, Ohio's Constitution actually includes a ban on same-sex marriage. And this was brought about in 2004 when 61.7% of Ohio voters approved an amendment that says marriage is only between 1 man and 1 woman. I read that and I immediately picture that billboard on 71.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
Holy matrimony is 1 man and 1 woman. Okay. And as most of you probably know, the United States Supreme Court legalized gay marriage in 2015 through the Obergefell case originating, out of all places, in Ohio. However, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas called on the justices to revisit Obergefell after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022. So, the takeaway here is this. We can't trust the Supreme Court to uphold this right. If they were to overturn it, gay marriage would be banned in Ohio. We can take the power into our own hands by protecting gay marriage in the Ohio Constitution. And if we do that, if we pass this amendment, then gay marriage would be protected here in our state, even if the Supreme Court overturns it.
Yes. So obviously these are 2 really great things. These are the first 2 we're going to talk about today, but if we did not make it clear, these are 2 ballot initiatives that would add amendments to our Ohio Constitution, and they are good things. These are good things. These are things that, we want them on the ballot. If you see someone out there collecting signatures, please sign it. Sign both of them because there will be 2 petitions, unfortunately. And we've already kind of walked you through what like that ballot initiative process is, but the signature gathering right now is the big piece. So please sign the petitions.
And when you do sign, make sure that your signature is somewhat similar to what's on your voter registration / your driver's license, because our current Secretary of State loves to be throwing out signatures.
Yeah, they do. Okay, let's move on to what we are labeling issue number 3, which once again, just a disclaimer, it will not be issue number 3 on your ballot, okay? The third ballot initiative we're going to talk about today is a citizen-led effort to basically abolish property tax. Now, this initiative has a website, and it's called axohiotax.com, spelled AXOH tax.com. Before we dive into this initiative, we unfortunately have to talk about property taxes, and we have to make sure folks understand just what they are and what they fund today. So I promise this will be the briefest tax lesson you can get, and we won't make it boring. We're going to make it fun. So property tax is the tax you pay each year based on the value of your property. And this doesn't matter if your house is paid off or if you still have a mortgage. For many folks, your mortgage, like if you have a mortgage, this amount that you pay is rolled into your monthly payment via like an escrow account. So you might not realize you're paying it, but you are paying property tax. Everybody does who owns some form of property.
So your property tax is different than a sales tax, which you pay when you buy things, or income tax, which is the money you see taken out of your paycheck. Or if you're self-employed, it's the money you pay to the IRS, state of Ohio, and then either RETA or your local city, county, municipality, whatever. Okay, hang in there. We're almost done. It's almost over. But first, we have to talk about what your property tax is used for. And this is what is extremely important.
So every city and county across Ohio will be a little bit different, but I pulled mine to give you guys an example. So Hudson's website has a nice little visual breakdown, and it shows you where your property taxes go for every dollar that you pay in property taxes, how it's broken down. So for example, for Hudson, 3 pennies, 3 cents goes to our Library and Historical Society. 6 cents actually goes to the city of Hudson. 22 cents goes to the county and our county metro parks. And 69 cents goes to Hudson City Schools, which is our public school district. So, like I said, everyone's might be a bit different, but for Ohioans, the majority of your property taxes goes to your local school district, and a portion goes to your county and your city or your town to fund necessary services like fixing your roads, funding your police and your fire department, etc.
Okay, so back to the amendment. What do we think happens if we eliminate property taxes? Well, the Ohio Tax Group would like for you to think that the state will just take care of it. They literally say on their website that all these essential services in public schools won't be impacted, but at the end of the day, it's really just not true. Our corrupt as fuck Statehouse has regularly underfunded, and not only underfunded, but diverted public school funds to other things like vouchers for private schools. They have no plan. Nowhere has anyone answered the question about how these things would be funded. And if this makes it to the ballot and then actually passes in November, it would go into effect in January of 2027, and our schools and counties and cities would all be in a world of hurt, as we all would as well.
So, yeah, the reality is that this would be devastating for Ohio. And we get it. If you own a home, you feel this pain of property taxes. They have risen and gotten really out of control. And I think, especially since COVID, this has happened. But unfortunately, abolishing property tax is just not really a viable solution. We aren't going to get into possible solutions around property tax today because that's just not the point of this episode, but we have had past guests talk about it. Kara Jacobs specifically talks really well about this issue, and she explains it very well. She's running for state senate. We have an episode with her. So if you are really interested in this topic and want to understand some possible options, please go back and give that one a listen. For now, here in this episode, what we are going to say is if you see someone collecting signatures for abolishing property tax, do not sign, guys. It's not a good thing. Okay, we're not going to ever tell you like what to do, but at the end of the day, this would be really devastating for Ohio. Obviously, it's your decision. But for us, it's a no. It's a hard no. If this thing collects enough signatures and it makes it to the ballot, you will be hearing from us again because we will be advocating against it. But for now, we just want you to understand that this would be really, really devastating for Ohio, and the group out there that is running this and trying to do it, they don't have an alternative plan to help fund anything that they would be taking all these funds away from. And a lot of these really are truly essential services. Taxes. We made it. You got the tax lesson? You understand the taxes? We made it through.
Ashley's like, we're never going to tell you what to do, but
But
don't
like,
sign this.
don't do it. I don't want to tell you what to do, but please don't sign this petition. Okay.
But please and thanks. Okay, y'all, hang in there. We are on our fourth and final ballot initiative that you need to be aware of for 2026. An organization called the Ohio Coalition to End Qualified Immunity, or OCEQI, is seeking to add an amendment to the Ohio Constitution that would end qualified immunity. Raise your hand if you know what that is. Ashley and I, well, Ashley's raising her hand because she wrote about this and researched it, but I have no idea.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, but I also for the record, had no idea until 3 hours ago when I wrote this outline. Okay, so qualified immunity is a judicial doctrine that was developed by the Supreme Court in the late 1960s. And basically, it shields state actors, typically police officers, from liability for their misconduct, even when they break the law. And there are many arguments against qualified immunity, and there are obviously some arguments for it. But the arguments against, for example, like one of the main things is our primary federal civil rights statute says that any state actor who violates someone's constitutional rights, in quotes, shall be liable to the party injured. But under this doctrine of qualified immunity, the court has held that such defendants can't be sued unless they violated, in quotes, clearly established law. So this is a bunch of legal jargon. But basically, to say this as plainly as possible, it's entirely possible and actually quite common for courts to hold that government agents did violate someone's rights, but that the illegality of their conduct wasn't sufficiently obvious for them to be held liable to the victim for their misconduct. So basically, even more simply, this is about as simple as I can get it now. Someone's rights are violated and they have no option for recourse or to be compensated in any way for the damages that were done to them.
So back to Ohio specifically, this ballot initiative is seeking to add an amendment to the Ohio Constitution that would end qualified immunity. It would allow Ohioans to file lawsuits against police officers, prosecutors, correctional officers, or other public employees for violations of constitutional rights. Lawsuits could also be filed against the state, city, or other governmental entities that they work for, with the employer being responsible for fines and financial penalties.
Now, this initiative has actually had a lot of hurdles so far. This effort has been underway for years. And then back in 2024, the ballot initiative was rejected several times in that, if you remember back to our ballot initiative process, in that very first step. So when they gathered the 1,000 signatures and they turned it over to the Ohio Attorney General, which in this case is Dave Yost, for basically the language to be approved, he said that their language was not fair and truthful. And so they filed a lawsuit on behalf of Ohio voters, arguing Yost's decision was basically like nitpicking and not based on a reasonable determination of whether the ballot language was fair and truthful. The U.S. District Court judge that heard that case, James Graham, he was appointed by President Ronald Reagan. He agreed in a decision that sided with the voters. And in his ruling, he wrote, "The Attorney General, one might say, has played the role of an antagonistic copy editor, striking plaintiffs' work on technical grounds." So, a conservative judge ruled in favor of voters in Ohio and against the Republican AG. And Yost, of course, didn't like that outcome, and he tried to take it to the Supreme Court. But on April 22nd, 2025, so just this past spring, the U.S. Supreme Court, in a 6-3 decision, denied Yost's motion to stay the lower court's order, which this essentially permitted the proposed amendment to proceed. So this amendment, like I said, has had hurdles. It's been kind of juggled around, but Yost lost in court is the end of the day. So the amendment gets to move forward, and here we are.
So all of that to say, we can't find much current reporting on this, but we do know that they're gearing up to collect signatures, which means they're attempting to get it on the ballot this November. And so generally Democrats and pro-democracy groups in Ohio are in support of this initiative. So if you are as well, be sure to find somewhere to sign.
Yep. Okay, so those are our 4 ballot initiatives. Just a reminder, they are all in the signature gathering phase. So they have to gather over 400,000 signatures, and they have to submit those signatures to the state of Ohio by July 1st. So between now and July 1st, folks will be gathering signatures. If you want to help get this stuff on the ballot, or and some of them you don't, avoid those ones. But if you want to help get some of these on the ballot, find where you can sign. We have every link to each one of these initiatives and their organizations in the show notes. And it is so helpful when you go find a location to sign versus like us having to run down people.
Yes.
Sarah and I will have petitions for both of the equality amendments, marriage equality and equality. So we are two people you can come to sign these. The other one you'll have to unfortunately find on your own. I don't really know much about it yet, but if we know more, we'll share more.
Yes, absolutely. So we talked a lot about ballot initiatives. There also are a few Statehouse things that we want to cover today in this month's Ohio episode. Just 3 different bills. Well, technically 4, but 3 main topics here. Well, technically 2. Anyways, it doesn't matter. We're going to start on some immigration bills that are currently in the Statehouse, starting with Senate Bill 172. This would require all state and local officials to allow all immigration-related arrests with or without a warrant, even if a person is only suspected of being an illegal immigrant. So essentially, this would expand immigration arrests across Ohio, including schools, courts, and places of worship. So it is passed in the Senate, but now it is on to the House. So be sure to call your Ohio House rep and tell them to vote no on this. Again, this is Senate Bill 172 and would expand immigration arrests across Ohio, which I don't know. I don't think a lot of people are super for right now, at least a lot of folks that are listening to our podcast. So,
especially because they're already like doing this.
Yeah.
I have video after video on my newsfeed of them doing this, even though it's not legal. So like, let's not give them the legality of it, guys.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Another one under immigration is House Bill 42. This bill would require certain agencies to collect and report data concerning the citizenship or immigration status of persons with whom they come into contact. This includes school districts. Everyone includes school districts. So children, they are going after children, which let's be shocked that the Republicans are going to go after kids. It requires reporting on immigration status and reporting on students that are here, quote, unlawfully. So this is still in committee in the House. So we can currently try to put a stop to this before it really gets started, before it comes to a vote on the House floor. So here are some things you can do at this stage. You can urge your school board to pass a resolution opposing this bill. We will include a sample resolution in the show notes provided by Ohioans Against Extremism. You can also tell your Government Oversight Committee Chair, Thomas Hall, not to give HB 42 any more hearings. You can tell the committee vice chair, Ron Ferguson, to help stop HB 42. And of course, if it comes to it, and we hope it doesn't, but if it does, you can tell your state rep to vote no on HB 42 if it reaches the House floor.
And we will have some links in the show notes that'll direct you to these folks and their contact information. But if you don't want to do that, you can simply just Google Thomas Hall, Ohio House, or Ron Ferguson, Ohio House, and their pages will come right up. There'll be multiple to choose from. Okay, the last one that we want to talk about today, we have actually talked about before on our last Ohio episode. It is House Bill 172, but also Senate Bill 274. They are identical pieces of legislation. You may recognize these bills as the Child Abuser Protection Act. So again, we only talked about HB 172 in the last episode, but now the Senate has introduced the same type of legislation. And these 2 bills would ban all mental health services for minors without parental consent. It would fully repeal a section of the Ohio Revised Code, which allows 30-day or 6 sessions of mental health care for minors aged 14 and above without parental consent. If a child is being abused by a parent or guardian, 30 days of mental health care without parental consent may be their only opportunity to seek help, and that's why the current law exists, and these bills would completely ban that. Not great. Again, Child Abuser Protection Act. It's called that for a reason. So these bills are still in committee in the House and Senate. So here are some things that you can do to help them not reach the floor for a vote in either chamber. You can tell the House Health Committee Chair, Gene Schmidt, to stop HB 172. You can tell the Senate Health Committee Chair, Stephen Huffman, to stop SB 274. You can also reach out to other members of those committees and tell them to stop these bills. Links to the committees and the members on each and their contact information are in the show notes. And if either of these get to the floor for a vote, call your state senator and or your state rep to tell them to vote no.
Yep. And that is going to be it for today, folks. So that's a wrap on ballot initiatives that are underway this year in 26 that you need to be aware of, as well as just like a couple current actions that you can take for our state house. So as Sarah said, we have links for everything at the state house in the show notes. We'll have links for the ballot initiatives in the show notes. Call your state house rep and your senator about those Ohio bills. To find your state house rep and senator, if that's one of the actions you want to take, you can go to legislature.ohio.gov. If you haven't done so, just like save your senator and your rep in your phone. It will save you time, it will save you energy, and it will make it easier for you to do these actions, which you will forget about once you've done them. We'll wrap by saying stay safe, keep fighting. 26 is the year we can break the supermajority hold the GOP has on our state, and we need all of you engaged and in the fight to make that happen. We'll catch you next week.
See ya.